Hi guys, the last time we read part of chapter 18 where Candace and Brandon had just gone to Brandon's church together and they were about to talk to Deacon Draper after having a conversation with Milo and his mom. So that's where we're going to start up again. The deacon grabbed Brandon's hand for a firm shake. "What can I do for you, son?" "Whoa," Candace thought. His breath smelled like spicy sausage and onions. "This is my friend Candace," Brandon said. "Do you have a few minutes? We'd like to ask you a couple questions about some past members of the church." "Sure thing, but do you mind if we walk to my car?" They nodded, then followed the deacon down the hallway and out of the church. He nodded to a few people as he passed, but thankfully no one tried to stop him and talk. "Have you ever heard of a man named Enoch Washington, or his wife Leanne?" Brandon asked once they were out in the sunshine. Deacon Draper nodded. "I knew Coach Dub. He was my position coach in football. Played linebacker for him for 3 years in high school." Candace walked up a little so she could see around Brandon. "When did you graduate? 1957? 1950, he boasted. "Went into the Army right after. Korea." The deacon pulled his keys from his pockets as he neared his car, a cream-colored Cadillac sedan. "You mentioned 1957. Are you asking about the tennis game? I was back overseas when everything went down. It's a shame what happened to him. He was a good man. Tough as a box of nails, but good, fair, competitive." "Do you know anyone who was there that night?" Candace asked. "At the game?" "Afraid not. That was, 50, 60 years ago? Most of us ain't here anymore." He jingled his keys. "Though, Lord willing, I plan to hang out for a lot longer." Candace smiled. His breath aside, she liked Deacon Draper. "We were also hoping to find some information about his wife," Brandon said. "We have this photo." He pulled the picture from his pocket and unfolded it. "I think this is the old church building." Deacon Draper squinted as he brought the paper closer to his face. "Yep, that's the Washingtons. Coach Dub, Miss Leanne, and Lil Dub." "That was her nickname?" Candace asked. "Yeah, when she was a kid." He tapped his finger on the building behind the Washingtons. "That's the old church, all right, just a couple miles down the street. It was a good building. We just got too big for it." "Are there any records about the Washingtons in the church?" Brandon asked. "Anything we could look at?" The deacon shook his head. "I don't think so. There might be something in the storage, but I doubt it. Maybe one of the other members of the congregation might be able to remember something about them." He looked at the photo again. "Where'd you get this from?" Brandon and Candace shared a look. They shrugged at each other. "From the Perkins Memorial Room," Brandon said. "This was a photo in the video tribute to Coach Washington." "Ah, I knew it looked familiar," Deacon Draper said. "The church used to have a copy of that same photo." "Do you still have it?" Candace asked. Maybe there was a clue hidden on the back of the photo. "Perhaps. We actually have a lot of photos. Had them all touched up and hung up in the sanctuary right after we converted it to a community center." He closed his eyes and looked up. "Let's see. Greta was still alive. Nathan, our great-grand, had just been born." He sighed. "Maybe that was somewhere around 2006, 2007? 2007? Maybe they'd find something on the photos related to the date on the letter and Siobhan's memorial website." "We'd really love to see those photos," Candace said. "I don't think they're hanging there anymore," he said. "But I suppose they could be in a closet or a storage room somewhere." "Deacon Draper," Brandon began, "if you don't mind me asking, how did the church pay for the community center?" His voice was all squeaky. "Donations and offerings," he said. "You know, Pastor Richburg, he didn't want to hold no chicken bogs or fish fries to raise money." He nodded as he braced himself against the car. "Yeah, some of it's coming back to me now. We were promised a huge donation that would totally cover the renovation if we could open the building by the beginning of 2007. I can't remember who gave us the money. I think it was anonymous, but I know it was plenty big." Another anonymous donation, Candace thought. Another instance of James Parker working behind the scenes. "Did you make the deadline?" Brandon asked. Deacon Draper nodded. "We had to scramble, but we made it. The city manager was able to pull some strings for us." Candace froze. "You okay?" Deacon Draper asked her. "Looks like you just saw a 3-headed mule." "It's just—" She let out a long breath. "Was Abigail Caldwell the city manager then?" "Sure was. Couldn't have got it done without her." "She was my grandma," Candace said softly. "I see," he mumbled. "Well, just so you know, Miss Caldwell was remarkable. A true friend to this church and the black community. Though we didn't realize it until her successor came along. I heard she moved back to Georgia. How's she doing?" Candace touched her bracelet. She died 2 years ago. Oh, I hadn't heard that. He pushed himself off the car and straightened his stance. I'm so sorry for your loss. Candace nodded. She'd heard that phrase a lot when her grandmother first passed, but she never knew the right way to respond. Can we go to the building today? Brandon asked. We'd really like to see if we could find those photos. I don't have the keys, but it'll be open tomorrow. I'll see if I can get someone to find those photos for you. He looked back at Candace. It's the least I can do for Abigail Caldwell's granddaughter. Chapter 19. Hey, Candace, Brandon's mother said as she opened the door on Monday morning. She held a cup of steaming coffee. Brandon's in the backyard with that basketball. Why don't you go out there? And feel free to stick around for dinner tonight. No point in y'all cooking when we have plenty of food here. We're having spaghetti. Candace slipped off her backpack and walked through the kitchen to the back door. Brandon stood a few feet away from a basketball goal, the ball spinning in his hand. He squared himself up, raised his arms, and took a shot. The ball arched toward the hoop, rotating in space before swooshing through the rim. All net. Nice shot, Candace said. Brandon's head whipped around. Oh, hey! He looked at his watch. Sorry, I lost track of time. It's okay, Candace said. You can keep practicing if you want. I'll just take a few more shots, he said, as he chased down the ball. It had come to a stop in the tall grass. It's kind of hard to dribble back here, so I mainly work on shooting, trying to up my three-point percentage. He picked up the ball and moved even farther away from the rim. He banked the basketball off the backboard and into the net. It wasn't until 5 shots later that Brandon missed his first bucket. Brandon was good, way better than she expected him to be, even after learning he used to play on a team with Milo. She felt a little guilty about his new revelation. Brandon was so small and so bookish, she had just assumed he wasn't very athletic. Brandon took a final shot, then lobbed the ball up toward Candace. Want to try? Candace straightened her stance, like she'd learned in gym class, then launched the ball at the goal. Air ball. I'm better at puzzles, she told Brandon as she chased the rolling ball. They returned to the computer room a few minutes later. Tori found a few more things she thought you'd like, Brandon said, nodding toward the small plastic bag on the bed. The bag was tied shut, but Candace was able to pull it open enough to peek inside. Some of the clothes still have tags on them. Tori never met a sale she didn't like. He sat down at the desk. So what's the next step? The old church building? We need to call Deacon Draper to set up a time. In a second, Candace rifled through her backpack as she found her hand-drawn calendar. This is for you, she said. It's Milo's weekly schedule. Brandon took the paper. What? How? That's why I was asking his mom so many questions yesterday. I was trying to figure out his schedule. It had reminded Candace of Sudoku, a puzzle that her grandmother had taught her. But instead of completing a number grid, she was trying to fill in dates, times, and locations. It wasn't easy, especially with her mom's phone as the only way to get on the internet. But she was eventually able to piece together not only when Milo had practices, games, and meetings, but also where they were. Based on the city website, Milo probably has swimming lessons twice a week. The closest pool is still pretty far away, so I bet someone drives him and brings it back. That's why that's colored in green. Basketball practices are in red. The Y is a lot closer, so he probably bikes there. I bet that's where he was coming from the other day. She shrugged. I had to take a guess on Boy Scouts and choir practice based on an old church calendar I found online. It's not perfect, but I figured it was my way for making up for last Friday. What are you talking about? You know, how you didn't want to bike to the school, and how you didn't want to go, and how you wanted to go get something to eat afterward, and I didn't. It was obvious you didn't want to be riding around, she said. I guess I just wasn't paying attention. I could have been more honest, Brandon said. And to be fair, avoiding Milo wasn't the only reason I wanted to go to Sam's. Then why? Candace waited, but Brandon didn't speak. She nudged his chair with her foot, causing it to swivel. Why? She asked again. I just wanted to treat you to lunch. She glanced at the bag of clothes Tori had left for her. Then she thought about his mom's dinner invitation. Are you being nice to me because you think we're poor? You guys don't think we can afford a meal? Not exactly. And these clothes, did you make Tori go get them for me? I can't make Tori do anything. I don't want your charity, Brandon. That's not why I'm being nice. He made a face. Okay, that's not the only reason why I'm being nice. I also wanted to hang out more. The summer kind of sucked before you got here. She flexed her knee, watching the hole in her jeans expand. We're not poor. I know. But we're not rich either. Writers don't make a lot of money, and Dad is doing really well at his job, but things only go so far. She took a peek at Brandon. His face was blank. Not inviting, but not condemning either. You know we're selling our house in Atlanta. He nodded. My mom told me. Are you selling the house here too? I don't think so, Candace said. Mom's already got another runner lined up for the fall. That'll bring in more money, but not enough to stop her from selling my house back home. So that's why you want to find Parker's money? Brandon asked. To save the house? Candace nodded. I'd share whatever I found with you, of course. 50-50. It's okay, Brandon said. The first priority is to buy the house. We'll figure out how to split the rest afterward. Candace crossed her arms and pinched her sides. She hated saying all this stuff out loud. It made it more real. At least now I know why you want to find the money so badly, he said. I would hate to move after living in a place for so long. She almost corrected him. It wasn't about the money. It was about her grandmother as well, about fixing her legacy. But there was no way Candace could say that out loud right then. How long have you lived here again, she asked. About 3 years. We visit during the summer, but we moved for good when Mom got a job at the tech college. I'm still trying to get used to this place, he smiled. Though those chili cheese dogs at Sam really are the best. Okay, we'll get your fancy hot dogs after we do some more investigating, but I'll pay for my own. Deal, and I'll talk to Tori about the clothes. I think my mom believes you guys are worse off than you really are. Candace chewed the inside of her mouth. Maybe their finances were worse than she realized. So, Deacon Draper? Brandon asked. I already called him this morning before I came over. He said he found some old boxes of photos that he could bring over. Candace pulled the yearbook from her bag, then handed Brandon another sheet of paper. And that's a list of all the players and coaches from the tennis team photo in the yearbook. The same photo that was in the glass case at the memorial. None of the guys are named James Parker, but maybe there's a connection. Brandon stared at the paper but didn't move. What is it? Candace finally asked. It's just, what does all this have to do with Siobhan? Brandon asked. The letter said she's the key, not James Parker. He's probably keeping himself anonymous because he doesn't want the focus to be on him. Trust me, Brandon, this is important. The more information we have about him, the better. Plus, some of these guys might lead us to more information about Siobhan. Brandon took a deep breath, then nodded. They began their internet search, moving down the list name by name. They were able to find more information on most of them. About half had passed away, and as far as they could tell, none of them still live in Lambert. Back to the athletic director, Adam Douglas. Is there any way he could beat James Parker? She had checked. He was the only white teacher at the school that year. I don't think they're the same person. The chin, the nose, and the eyes are all wrong. He glanced at his notes. Plus, according to his obituary, he was still teaching at Perkins when James Parker was running all those companies in Colorado. There's no way he could do both. And I'm going to stop right there because we're running out of time. And my question for you is, who do you think this James Parker guy really is? And how is he significant to the Washingtons and the Allens?